Hey there guys, welcome to Anthony Reviews, where Anthony reviews. And it is June, so that officially means it is Yo Joe June, which isn't exactly something that's celebrated to the highest degree every year, but you know what? I'm a fan of G.I. Joe. I've got a ton of G.I. Joe figures, so this year I'm going to be releasing quite a few G.I. Joe themed videos on this channel. So if you're a fan, feel free to stick around for the next month or so, and then hey, maybe stick around further after that. So for right now, we're going to be doing a collection video. I'm going to be showing you my entire G.I. Joe classified collection, all of the figures. Now, this is part 1, so we're doing exclusively G.I. Joe. COBRA will be saved for part 2, so subscribe and stick around for that video in the future. But for now, let's just go ahead and go through all of my Joes from G.I. Joe Classified. This video is brought to you in part by Super 7. If you're a fan of things from the 80s, 90s, or even today, why not check out Super 7? They've got action figures, apparel, and so much more for your collecting needs. Click the link down in the description below to check out super7.com today. So let's rewind the clock all the way back to the earliest days of this line. You know, we're talking 2020, which feels crazy, right? Like, it's crazy that this line has been around for so long, and it's funny to look back at those initial designs. Now, it is no secret that the early days of Classified were mixed reactions at best, right? Like, it wasn't exactly retro, it wasn't exactly modern. You know, a lot of people were throwing around the words like Fortnite, things like that. I mean, to me, they are cool G.I. Joe figures. Am I happy the way the direction went eventually? Yeah, I think I am, but in terms of these figures, I like that the colors pop. I like that they were trying to do something new with the brand. And, you know, for the most part, I do think it mostly works, you know? I mean, they didn't immediately cancel it, so that's good. I mean, looking at a character like Duke here, you know, he's got like some red on the gloves and like an orange watch and this like laser with gold trimming, and I could understand why people wouldn't like this. You know, it's very loud. Some people would refer to it as gaudy, but like, I love that face sculpt, you know? I think it's great. I love the way the hair is done, and everything about this, I think, looks good. So, in terms of like the weird color choices and the techno vibes, it's not super crazy to me. I still think it works as a cool 6-inch figure. Like, you put this guy next to like Marvel Legends or something, and I don't feel like it feels out of place by any means. I do feel like Gung Ho loses a bit of his charm here. It definitely feels a bit like Space Marine, right? Like, it's very techy. It's very, sort of, not Gung Ho. Like, Gung Ho in my mind is a very loud and proud sort of Marine character. This feels very generic, you know, like he's going to be killed off in the first few minutes of Alien kind of thing, which, yeah, I mean, the guns are at their most nerfy and sci-fi here. I don't know, like, this one I think is serviceable, but in terms of Gung Ho, we get a much better representation later on. Two of the biggest offenders in terms of this sort of like poppy, cartoony Fortnite style is, of course, Roadblock and Scarlet. Like, the colors are really bright. She's got like orange hair with a very like pale skin. People just seem to dislike this Roadblock quite a bit, even though it does take inspiration from the sort of version 2 Roadblock, which, you know, is at least pulling from something, but I can understand. Like, once again, these characters have been redone since then, and I do think that the newer ones are an improvement, but I still don't hate these versions of them. And then out of the crew, ironically, Snake Eyes, I feel like gets the least amount of complaints, but he actually was in Fortnite, so that's kind of a weird twist of events. But hey, you know what? I like this figure. I will say, though, now that we're moving to a more classical sort of real American hero approach, I do kind of want this guy in a more, you know, less detailed outfit. Like, this is cool. You know, it makes sense for this sort of like modern ninja commando, but, you know, I want sort of a classic take on the character, and this works, but I think we've run our course with this body, which you will see. You'll see more of him in the future. So honestly, not a bad way to start a G.I. Joe line, but you'll notice very soon that things will eventually turn into more classic ways. But for now, we still have a few designs that feel very hip in now, and a little bit wow. Alright, let's go into sort of a green territory here with the next few figures that came out, that being with Flint, Lady J, and Beachhead here. Now, Beachhead is a little bit different, so we'll talk about him first. Beachhead was part of the dreaded Cobra Island series. For those of you who don't remember, and, you know, maybe it's better that you don't, back in the day, during the pandemic, toys getting to stores was not easy. It was a very difficult situation going on, and so with an exclusive line going to Target, I think they had sort of underestimated the demand for figures like this. So I was very lucky to get this Beachhead, honestly, which now with their new version coming out that's a bit more retro, doesn't really matter. But I do still like this figure here. I think he gives off the vibes of Beachhead. I like the attitude in the eyes here. The green gun is not my thing. I kind of wish, if a gun is going to be a gun, it needs to be black. Being green like this, it doesn't really work for me, but he comes with a good amount of accessories, which they all do. They all really come with nice weapons and backpacks and all that stuff. So I do appreciate that about him, but this was obviously a very hard figure to find, and nowadays that doesn't really matter. Someone who got the retro treatment that we'll look at later on was Lady J. This one stays pretty close to how you remember from like the cartoon and whatnot, so I do like that about her. I like all the colors. I like the sort of spear accessories that she comes with. The eyes are a bit, I don't know, dead, just a little. So that's kind of a bummer, honestly. But overall, I do think that she pulls off the look of Lady J fairly well. So I think she looks good on the shelf. I would like an updated one. I think maybe a bit more modern take on this character. And by that, I mean modern toy sort of details. I think with the face and the hair, I think you could get something that looks a lot closer to like the cartoon. So, but it's good for what it is. And then a character they honestly haven't done a whole lot with since this came out, I think he's gotten one other figure, is Flint. Now, if you're a fan of the cartoon like I am, the 80s cartoon, Flint was kind of a major character. When Duke wasn't around, Flint and Lady J were kind of like the de facto main characters of the show. So I do think this is a good Flint figure. He looks very John Hamm on steroids, which is an interesting take. He's got a scar over his eye, but overall he has all the details of the beret and the black shirt. This vest here is a bit much. I feel like if you sort of take this middle part out, which I've seen people do, it can look a bit better, but it's kind of strange that we haven't seen a more classic version of this character yet. This is it, and then they took this exact figure and repainted it in Tiger Force, but other than that, that's all he's got. But I like the shotgun here with the shells on his chest, and he looks good. He looks really manly and inappropriate, but it is kind of something where I would like a newer version, kind of with all these three. And we're getting another Beachhead, but same with Lady J and Flint. Even though Lady J got another one, I want another one. But other than that, they pretty much have all the colors and characteristics of their classic version. So you can really see that very early on, the G.I. Joe team listened to those initial reactions shown at Toy Fair and made some changes. Now, who knows? Maybe these were always meant to look this way. I'm not entirely sure, but it was definitely a point in the right direction, and I think fans were pretty happy with the changes that were already being put into the line. Alright, now we're going to move on to something that fans are a bit more, I hate to say it, but they're a bit more negative towards. This is the Snake Eyes movie G.I. Joe characters. Now, obviously, a couple of these people aren't fully G.I. Joe, like Akiko never becomes G.I. Joe as far as I'm aware, but they're the good guys. Scarlet is definitely part of G.I. Joe, and it is what it is. Yeah, the Snake Eyes movie isn't everyone's cup of tea. I thought it was fine. I think it's perfectly enjoyable from a certain point of view. However, I can see why they haven't done anything with it since then. Not a great critical reception, not a great box office. Yeah, it's a bit of an unfortunate reality. But, some still fun figures, I would argue. They did a fairly decent job translating Samara Weaving as Scarlet into this plastic form. The design is nice, she's got some yellow details and she's got her sort of crossbow, so like the Scarlet-ness is there. Is it, like a perfect Scarlet design? I think it's serviceable. I think when you think of a G.I. Joe movie, this is about as good as you're going to get, which is kind of a shame. I do like a lot of the designs in the movie, so knowing that they're going to be tossed aside for yet another new rendition along the line is, unfortunate. But I do like this figure. I think it's a good-looking Scarlet. Is it comic book Scarlet or cartoon Scarlet or toy Scarlet? No, but it is a good movie Scarlet. Akiko here was a pretty fun character, it was sort of a let me show you my world kind of character for Snake Eyes, Henry Golding's character was sort of a fish out of water, so she was here to kind of show him the ropes, and there's like a slight romantic thing, but not really. Anyways, I think this is a pretty good female ninja design. They would actually reuse this body on quite a few female ninjas, so it's got enough of the details there. And you notice it's kind of like an in-between. She's wearing black with a little white, so it's kind of like the worlds between Storm Shadow and Snake Eyes, which is cool, right? That means something to all the for fans of the Snake Eyes movie. And then, of course, we have Henry Golding himself as Snake Eyes. I think his character had a name in the movie, but I don't remember it. It's been a while since I've seen it. This is a fine Snake Eyes design. It's fine. You know, it's a black high-tech bodysuit, of course. That's what he was going to look like no matter what. I don't think it's as good as the G.I. Joe Retaliation suit. I would love to see figures from that, honestly, because I like that movie, despite the fact that it stars The Rock. But, you know, he's got his sword, Morning Shine, or Sunstar, or what, I don't remember what it was called. It was some special sword, and I have the head on here just to kind of show it was the Snake Eyes movie. Because it comes with a Snake Eyes head, but, like, he didn't look like that. I mean, he didn't really look like this at any point either, but that's fine. So all in all, decent toys for a maybe less than decent movie. Obviously, these filled the shelves for a very long time. It was kind of unfortunate just how much of a peg warmer these figures ended up being. I'm sure if you look at your local Ross or something, there may still be Snake Eyes movie figures available there, but, you know, they're not bad toys. They're just kind of undesirable, I guess. Alright, let's talk about some sort of exclusives and unique items coming out of the G.I. Joe line. So we have Breaker here on the Ram, and then we also have Roadblock with a whole new look to him. A lot more of a classic version 1 Roadblock, if you will. And looking at these two, you can really tell that Hasbro is listening. You know, it's hard to deny at this point that Hasbro is paying attention to what the fans are talking about, what they like, what they don't like, because these two figures here are pretty much just straight up representations of those characters that you may recognize from the toy line or the cartoon or however. So, yeah, I mean, it's pretty cool to see that they want fans to like what they're making, and so they kind of change what they need to. You know, once again, there's no gold details, there's no sci-fi stuff on it. It's just Breaker and Roadblock. So taking a look at Roadblock here, obviously he has this giant minigun that just blowing people away with it, which is pretty cool. You know, he's a big hefty guy, so it makes sense to give him a big hefty gun. So I like that about him. He does come with a removable helmet, so if you just want that classic sort of Roadblock vibe, you can. I mean, honestly, compared to that sort of first figure, this looks like it's supposed to be Roadblock's dad or something, you know, like a completely different character. And I guess you could say, like, well, this is him older, you know, like that's him young, and now this is him in his later years. And sure, you know, whatever works. I'm not going to fight anyone's kind of imagination on that, but very simple sort of camo tank top with these sort of almost burnt orange pants. Yeah, if you want Roadblock, like, this is the version to get, which did make it unfortunate that I believe this was an Amazon exclusive. Like, this is Heavy Duty Roadblock or something that it's called, and yeah, this went straight to Amazon, and I'm sure this is the version a lot of fans want and probably still want to this day, and I don't know how available it is, so I do think that is an unfortunate reality to the Roadblock situation. And then we have Breaker here on his cool motorcycle, and obviously looking kind of like the love child of Bradley Cooper with maybe a bit of a Jake Gyllenhaal in there. So, I mean, it's cool. It's cool to have a vehicle in the line, which you'll see we do end up getting quite a few more vehicles throughout the G.I. Joe classified line, but obviously with 6-inch, it's not always a guarantee. You know, 3 3/4 inch is perfect for vehicles and playsets, and, you know, anyone that grew up in the 80s or 90s or whenever can really tell you about that. 6-inch, not so much, but the fact that we do have vehicles like this, and a very cool one at that, is very much appreciated. And I do like the vehicle and the figure. The figure does come with this helmet here, which you can put on. I like the way the visor looks. I think that effect looks really, really cool. It's just a sort of plastic effect. You know, it's not really any actual reflective visor, but it makes it look like it is. And I think that is a very important detail. Like, this is usually just how I have him displayed, just chilling out with the helmet on. He looks how he's supposed to look, which is great. So past this point, we really kind of see where the line is existing to this day even. It is no longer the sort of modernization of the classified line. It is pretty much as close as you can get a one-to-one translation from those original figures. So from this point on, you know, they're going to be different. You know, they are going to be updated, but they're going to be as close as possible to those, I guess you would call them G1. I'm so used to referring to that as like Transformers, but the G.I. Joe G1 designs. So going into characters like Barbecue, Spirit, and then yet another Snake Eyes here, once again, you can really see that sort of cartoon classic vibe going into it. Barbecue here feels very retro sci-fi. I mean, especially with that helmet, which is very inspired by its original sort of rendition back in the 80s. It does not feel of now, which is good. I think I like that about him. This sort of orangey jumpsuit with the black sort of panels and details, and yeah, that big visor and everything. Like, he looks really, really cool. He's ready to chop down some doors and save some people, and I really, really like that about him. He looks like he could fit in with Star Wars characters, honestly. Like, you could put this guy in the Mos Eisley Cantina, and I don't think he would look that strange. Maybe the axes would come off a bit weird, but he has this sort of weapon here that looks very Star Wars-y. Like, honestly, I like that about him. He kind of can fit in anywhere you want. Spirit is a fan favorite of mine. I really like this character from the original cartoon. I know him and Storm Shadow had a bit of like a rivalry going on, and they sort of had this sort of honor and respect idea between them, and you know, having him here with Freedom. I love the fact that we're getting so much animals in the G.I. Joe line. I mean, G.I. Joe is sort of known for having a bunch of pets. You know, there's a Robot Chicken sketch about it if you haven't seen it. So it's funny to have the figures nowadays continue that trend of these characters having these pets. You'll notice that we do have a Joe Pro on the shoulder there. So a little bit of like a remnant of the past, but everything else is pretty classic Spirit, honestly. Like, this is undeniably the G.I. Joe character, and I love the facial expression on him. Like, I think that looks really cool. It's very stern, very stoic, and yeah, I think he has a presence on the shelf that really, really stands out, in my opinion. And then, of course, we're going to have Snake Eyes and Timber. If you're going to do animals in G.I. Joe, of course you're going to do Timber. Timber, the Timber Wolf, of course, that Snake Eyes finds in the original cartoon. You know, Snake Eyes and a wolf. You know, characters in wolves, right? Like, wolves are lone wolves. They're cool, badass hunting dogs. Like, really, really neat. So, yeah, to have this sort of classic Snake Eyes going the more commando route than the ninja route, which I like. I'm a big fan of the commando look. I do like this helmet quite a bit. I think it looks cool. The body is reuse from Beachhead from earlier, but you know, it gives that kind of sort of classic, almost like a sweater design to it. So I think it works for what it is. You'll see later that we have another Snake Eyes, so that takes that sort of commando feel and a retro feel even further beyond what we have here. But for these, I made a fully articulated dog with multiple heads and everything. I can't help but love that. That's exactly what this line needs. So after vehicles getting stuff like animals and 2-packs, it really shows that the line is growing. You know, it's not just going to be 5 figures just in a wave and that's going to be it. We're going to continue to see the line evolve into different kinds of releases, which I think is the best way to keep a line alive, right? Is keep people interested in new and interesting ways and do things that you can't have normally done within that first year. But this is proof that the line is doing well enough to try different things. All right, let's talk retro very quickly. We're going to be talking about the retro releases of Lady J and Gung Ho. Now, as I mentioned earlier, there was sort of a need for more classic characters. And I guess with these sort of earlier characters in the waves, I think Gung Ho was like wave 2, Lady J was wave 3 or so, they decided to sort of repackage them with new accessories, new sculpts, just little things here and there to make them feel different enough while still using a bit of reuse on sort of classic style cards, and hopefully fans would be intrigued to get them. Lady J, as far as I can tell, is pretty much just a straight up repaint. You know, you have that original figure in the sort of darker colors, this one's a bit lighter. They both came with their sort of hats, so I've got this one wearing the hat and the other one not wearing a hat. This one's definitely heavier on the makeup, which I don't know if it works the way they think it would. I don't know. I don't think that necessarily helps the overall look of the figure. But if you like the first one, you don't necessarily need this one. If you missed out on the first one, I think this is a perfectly fine replacement. However, as I mentioned earlier, I think with the way the line is now, it would be nice to have a even more classic style Lady J in the line. You know, like, it's been a while. This figure came out a couple years ago at this point. Just give us a newer Lady J. Why not? Now, with Gung Ho, though, he is 100% a glow-up in comparison to that original. You know, the original was very much an idea of Gung Ho. You know, but this this is the cartoon character with the teal and everything, and the massive chest tattoo and the correct hat this time. Like, this is how you imagine the character in your head, and it's great to actually have him, you know? Like, that first one was passable. It wasn't great, but it was passable. This is gung-ho, and I'm very, very happy that they're able to get him in this line. You know, he's got a new vest and everything. Like, still some reuse. The legs and, like, from the waist down, I'm pretty sure is reused there. But everything else really makes this stand out as the definitive gung-ho for right now. So, honestly, while Lady J, I do want a replacement, I'm good with this. You know, like, you can do other versions of gung-ho, I think. But in terms of this version, they nailed it. So that wasn't the last of the Retro series. We'll actually see later on that Retro changes what it kind of represents. Like, this feels very, let's get repaints out there. You know, like, let's take existing stuff and change it up and make it a little bit more new. But as we go further down the line, you'll realize that, no, it's actually just making brand new figures. Which is, like I said, we'll get there. So not even that much longer later, we do get yet another 2-pack of Snake Eyes and Timber. It's a little bit different than the first one, but yeah, it is very close. And then we also get Dusty and Stalker, which are really cool additions to the line. We'll get Snake Eyes and Timber out of the way first, just because they are pretty much just retooling and repainting, and really just repainting. That's all it is. So this Snake Eyes is using that body from the first figure, you know, from the very first wave. He's got some new accessories, like he's got this sort of shuriken hand, and he's got like a sort of karate chop hand that has like a little bit of a spiky thing in it. And then he also has this sort of like scarf thing going on. Stalker also came with the exact same scarf, but I don't have him displayed with it. So it's fine. He's got sort of like tan pants. I don't know if it's supposed to be kind of like a, which one is it? Renegades, right? I don't know if it's supposed to be like a Renegades thing, but it's a different version of the Snake Eyes look. And then with Timber, it's the same figure, it's the same wolf. However, this time it is much more of a white than it is gray. So that's the only difference there. It's still a good figure, so you know, like if you missed out on the first one, it's cool to pick up this white version. Looking at Stalker here, I think he looks really, really good. I do think that the greens were a little bit more green. On camera, they do come up pretty green, but in person, it's a bit more of a drab, very, very gray green. So I kind of wish they were a bit brighter, but other than that, I do think he looks really cool. I love his stern sort of facial expression, you know? He looks really serious. He looks really badass, so I think that is a very cool touch for the character. So I think in terms of Stalker, you know, I think this is pretty definitively, you know, the Stalker you're going to want in your collection. I don't know exactly what they'll do in the future, Tiger Force or whatever, but this is a really good one. And then we've got Dusty here, you know, another cartoon favorite. He had a pretty big episode back in the day where, like, everyone thought he was a traitor, but he was actually trying to help his mom or something. It was a pretty involved storyline, but Dusty is cool. He's a pretty simple looking, you know, figure, just a guy in sort of a desert camo outfit. My goodness. But he does have this nice sort of hat and goggles combo. I believe, if we take that off, yeah, he has goggles he can wear, but the hat is a little too loose. But if you put goggles on his head, then you can kind of make the hat fit a bit better. It doesn't go all the way down to his shoulders, which is unfortunate, but it pulls off the look. When it's not with the sort of band keeping it up, it kind of looks weird. So, you know, bit unfortunate, but he's a very pretty looking guy, isn't he? He's kind of got these like lips, looks like he's ready to kiss. So if you want to kiss, here's Dusty. At this point in the line, we're really just sort of filling out the ranks. Like, yeah, we've got a few repeats. You know, this is, you know, the 4th Snake Eyes that we've seen in this video alone, and I actually don't even have all of the Snake Eyes, so just gives you an idea of just how many there are there. But with characters like Dusty, characters like Stalker, we are slowly filling out the ranks of our G.I. Joe team, which is exactly what you want. You know, G.I. Joe is the perfect thing where even if you don't know every character, you can just pick him up because he looks cool, which, you know, we haven't reached that point yet for me. So far, we're getting all the cartoon characters I like, but we will get there eventually. All right, we're going to take a moment to do a little bit of spotlight on, of course, the iconic real-life G.I. Joe himself, Sergeant Slaughter. This was a deluxe figure fully packed out with tons and tons of accessories. You know, things that you wouldn't normally get in your average G.I. Joe, with a backpack or a gun. You know, those are normal things. But this guy came with alternate hands, various different types of, like, his baton that he has, and I guess, is it called a baton? Whatever it is. You know, his little stick that he's got. But one of the most iconic pieces is his own G.I. Joe action figure here, which, as you can see, I've got him sort of gripping like that. And I mean, that is pretty cool. They had Sergeant Slaughter basically being like, you know, listen up, maggots, go buy my toys, you know, that kind of thing. That's a really good Sergeant Slaughter, Anthony. Like, you should probably get into an impression business with that. But yeah, he just has such a cool, commanding sort of force to him. He's got this nice textured tank top here, and he does have removable hat and glasses, but, like, it's Sergeant Slaughter. This is what he looks like. This is how he is, you know, at ease disease, that classic thing. And he's telling you to do what he do. So, it's awesome. I can't recommend the Sergeant Slaughter figure enough. I don't know the availability of this thing. I don't know how hard he is to find, but if you find him, you might as well grab him. So looking at this selection here, we do have a nice variety of different G.I. Joe characters. You know, we've got a ninja, we got a football player, you know, and just generally people with guns. So some pretty nice stuff here. I'm going to start talking with Kamakura just because I had no idea who this character was. He's got a little bit of a bobblehead. You kind of see that? It's a little, I had no idea who this character was, honestly. I had never read a book with him in it. I've never seen a toy of him, but, like, overall, he's a dude in a ninja outfit, green and blue, pretty cool color scheme. He's got the Arashikage logo there. Like, it's a cool toy. I mean, even if you don't know anything about him, I do think he's worth it. Maybe not worth it. If I remember correctly, he was, like, slightly more expensive than your average figure. I guess because he came with, like, swords and knives and guns and a whole bunch of stuff. I don't know if he's worth it in that sense, but, like, if you see him on sale, not like a ridiculous sale, not like $5. I mean, anything's worth $5. But, like, if you see him, I'd say he's a good pickup. Bazooka here, I think, looks really, really cool. Bazooka was kind of like an idiot or something in the cartoon. I don't know if he was meant to be anything in particular. I don't know if it was supposed to be a certain type of character, but he spoke in very, like, broken, dumb caveman English, but I guess it was just because he was, like, a big lughead, right? Like, that's really what it was about. And obviously he has a bazooka, and he's got rockets, so he can fire his bazooka, and I like his face, you know, very, sort of, dub bears about him, so I like that detail. He looks like how I remember him from the cartoon, and stuff like that is kind of important when you're collecting figures like this. CoverGirl's a pretty decent figure. Like, she's got this whole sort of, like, bomber jacket thing going on. She's got this cool wrench and everything. Like, I think she's pretty decent in that regard. However, I do think that the paint job on the head sculpt leaves something to be desired. Like, obviously, CoverGirl has had some pretty different looks from the cartoon and in the original toy and everything. So I like the aesthetic here, but the face is, like, you can barely tell. You can't really tell. But, like, the lipstick is, like, slightly too far down. You can't even see it, honestly. But it is something that's there. I think she looks good on a shelf. I think she's got attitude, as you can see. It kind of have her displayed with her gun slung over her shoulder and everything. I think that is cool. However, I do think it is not a strong figure. I don't know if it's a must-have, which is a shame. You know, you do want to add some more female characters to your roster because there's a good amount of female G.I. Joe characters, but this figure, it left something to be desired for me. Owlback's a little similar, where I don't know exactly what it is, but I feel like I'm missing something here. It doesn't help that this figure did release as a Tiger Force figure first, and me being me, I was like, well, I want the more standard one for the shelf. Like, that just makes more sense for me. But part of me wishes I had gone with the Tiger Force version, even though that one has, like, the gray hair and the orange shirt and everything. Like, yeah, it's not like classic Outback, but something about the face, it looks good on its own. It looks good. He has some piercing blue eyes, like scary blue eyes, which is a choice. But, you know, I think he looks good enough. The problem is definitely the problem here comes in the elbows. So everyone's elbows are kind of made of a different plastic, and sometimes they blend in a bit better than others. I guess because they're doing this sort of like red arm hair thing, it gives it more of an orangey feel. So then the plastic here is a bit more kind of like, it kind of looks like he has like, wow, oh my goodness, this figure is cursed. He just has weird discolored elbows, and I think that looks strange, but I mean, as a figure, he still looks really cool. He still comes with a bunch of cool accessories and everything, so I think on the shelf he looks fine, but it is weird that, like, the alternate version, the gray-haired, you know, specific variant is kind of a better looking figure than this one. So I would say it's around, like, this era of figures where people were starting to notice, like, weird QC issues, you know, just sort of, like, gummy pieces or pieces that are too tight or weird paint apps or, you know, wrong sort of plastic coloration. And yeah, it becomes a bit of an issue. But I am happy to say that moving forward, it really doesn't feel like that problem is as apparent as it is with some figures like these. Now, this group right here is a damn near perfect group of G.I. Joe figures. I mean, yeah, it does kind of look like a new generation of the Village People, but you could kind of say that all G.I. Joe kind of looks like the Village People, honestly. Am I wrong? But these guys look fantastic. So what we have here is Rock and Roll, Shipwreck, Snow Job, and Torpedo. We're starting with Rock and Roll here, and I mean, this guy just looks so cool, honestly. I love how much personality he has. Like, obviously, he's tatted up, right? Like, this is not cartoon Rock and Roll. But you know what? It's a really cool update to him. I love the Hang 10 on the on the helmet there. I love that he comes with, you know, his hand doing like the horns. So really, like, this guy honestly has way more personality than he has any right to be. You know, they could have just done a regular, normal version of the character and that would have been fine, but this guy with this sort of like double ammunition belts and once again just all the cool paint apps on him, and I mean, he looks great. He's just got that sort of like biker in a bar beard going on. Like, yeah, sure, it's blonde, but it is still very badass looking. Like, this is the kind of dude you walk up to at a concert, and at first you're like all kind of scared because he's like big and intimidating and kind of this big beefy man, and then he starts talking about music and you're like, oh, this guy's like really chill and really cool. So yeah, that's what I like about this guy. He's ready to rock. That's what's important to him, to rock and roll. Shipwreck is definitely one of my favorite G.I. Joe characters, mainly because of the cartoon. Well, exclusively because of the cartoon. I mean, he had so much character, you know? He was just cool. He was funny. It was great. So to get this guy and his sort of classic sort of glory here with the blue and the sailor hats, and yeah, I could not be more happy with this figure, honestly. Once again, looking at the tattoos, I do feel like it's a nice touch. There's a good amount of them without going overboard, no pun intended. But, I mean, so much details like the weathering on the jeans and the chest hair. And, yeah, I mean, that facial expression. This guy looks like he's going to say something, and he's going to end up in a bar fight, which is great. And Polly, we got another animal. You know what? That's what this is really all about, is just including more of these animals in the line, and I think that is a really good detail. Let's talk Snow Job. Now, Snow Job is great, I think, purely because of just how much he comes with. I remember when I was first getting into G.I. Joe, I was getting into the Pursuit of Cobra line from the sort of early 2010s period, and there was a Snow Job figure, and he came with everything. Everything you could possibly want with a Snow Job, he came with it. And, you know, I know Snow Job is kind of a joke, you know, through the sort of like Robot Chicken era of G.I. Joe fans, but like, honestly, he's just so cool. Like, the fact that he comes with all of this cool like skiing gear and these like snow boots, and he does come with like an alternate head, so you can kind of have him all goggled up and ready to roll. But I mean, this like 70s era looking man, you know, like getting ready to climb Mount Everest, it's just too good to not display. You know what I mean? Like, he looks great. So Rob Paulson, if you're out there watching, just know that the Snow Job figure in the G.I. Joe Classified line is an absolute home run. So good job on that. I know you didn't have anything to do with it, but I mean, you're Snow Job, so it makes sense to know. And then from the ice to the water, we have Torpedo, another character that I'm not super familiar with, but I mean, it's just a cool, slender, like, body, right? Like, the fact that they were basically doing just a normal muscular body, which is not something that they normally do in here. You know, we've got, like, clothes and gear and all these things, but, you know, with this skin-tight scuba gear, you're gonna want to have it be really slender and trim, and, I mean, yeah, this is great. He comes with this cool, like, harpoon gun, and the mask is removable so you can see his poor, sad face. Like, honestly, I love this guy. It's just so much fun. You know, as a kid that grew up watching stuff like Big Daddy, you know, if they want to give like a Scuba Steve sort of repaint of this guy, I won't be mad. You know, if you want to do something like a Stinky Diver, you know, like a Shipwreck version 3, you know, like why not, right? Why not? You can have him swimming about like that. So it's definitely around this time where it feels like G.I. Joe is just at its peak, really. Like, they can do no wrong. They're putting out these characters, and they're listening to fans, and they're really getting better and better with each release. And when they do hit a hiccup or a speed bump or whatever word you like to use, they fix those problems. They address those problems. They get in contact with fans, and they make sure that whatever they're having issues with gets fixed in the future. So having a slew of characters like this and hoping that the future will hold even better figures is an exciting time for G.I. Joe fans. So here's an assortment of random dudes, if you will. We've got Nunchuck, Chuckles, and Big Ben. So really not a whole lot of theming going around here. There's just figures that are released around the same time is pretty much it. But, you know, they all have their own flair. Once again, it shows the variety of G.I. Joe, right? It's like you got a ninja, you got a Brit, and you got a guy on vacation. So first looking at Big Ben, I mean, if it isn't obvious, I have no earthly idea anything about this character. But I do know that he obviously comes from jolly old England. His name is Big Ben, and this is a Night Force Big Ben, specifically. We've got a couple of Night Force characters. Night Force is kind of like the only specific, like, division, I guess you would call it, or brand, or, you know, because they have different things. They have, like, Python Patrol, Tiger Force, you know, just characters in different outfits and colors. But this guy is part of Night Force, and I have him, and I think he looks pretty cool. He's a big dude. He's obviously bigger than some of, like, the other... He's bigger than the other characters, as you can see. As you can see here, he is definitely bigger. So I like that about him. I like that he's, like, distinctively a big guy in the G.I. Joe ranks. This is, I believe, Nunchuck. So it's a guy dressed as a ninja. That's pretty much it. It looks like it uses the same body as Kamakura. He's got these sort of, like, Wolverine-type claws, and he's got these swords. So, like, if you're into ninjas, if you're into that kind of stuff, if you're really into, like, the late 80s, early 90s ninja craze, then by all means, this guy could be for you. I like the color scheme. The green and black is cool. You know, like the camo sort of like stripes on there. It's fine, but just the green and black in general, I think, is a very cool design to go with this ninja. And then finally, we have Chuckles here. Now, I know this character is a fan favorite. I haven't read a lot of, like, comics or anything with him in it. I know he was in the cartoon, not as much as the ones that I watched. I sort of watch the pre-movie stuff, honestly. But, I mean, I know he's a fan favorite. I know he's cool. And, I mean, just as, like, a guy, you know, very Magnum PI, right? I think he looks cool. He comes with this sort of briefcase, and he was let me see if I can remember if he's a San Diego Comic-Con exclusive or a Hasbro PulseCon exclusive. One of the two. He was exclusive to some sort of event, and, I mean, he does come with a lot. There's a little, you know, little references here and there, so I think it is cool just to have, like, a guy that's, like, ready for action. So I think that in itself is neat to have. So once again, to reiterate, I do like the variety that G.I. Joe comes with. You know, there's a lot of green here, I guess you could say, but it's a lot of different stuff, whether it's guys with big guns or swords or, you know, more casual beach wear. I think it's cool to have a nice sort of interesting spectrum of G.I. Joe characters. And here's 4 more random people. We've got from left to right Grunt, Tunnel Rat, Shooter, and Low Light. The only characters I'm super familiar with here are Tunnel Rat and Low Light. Grunt is obviously Grunt, so, like, he's around, he exists, he's a character who's named like he's just a nameless foot soldier, but either way. And then Shooter here is, I'm assuming, a new character. I don't really know her. I've never really heard anything about her. But, you know, female sort of sharpshooter, part of the Night Force stuff. So a little bit of variety there. Starting with low light here, I really do like this. I like the sort of all gray look with the tiny touches of color. Like obviously the red on his goggles there, and then just like over the shoulder. It provides just enough, you know? Like it's just enough to kind of brighten him up. He has a very mysterious vibe to him. I mean, it's like looking into his eyes, they look almost like smoky, like he's wearing sort of like eyeshadow or something. It's a very interesting thing going on here. You know, I obviously Lowlight I know is a character from the original days, and he's gotten quite a few figures over the years, but this one just feels very quiet. He feels very to himself, which I like. You know, he's got his gear, he's ready to get up on a perch or a building or a mountain and get to work. So I like that about this figure. Grunt is cool to have just because he is just a guy, you know, he's just in green fatigues and he's got like a helmet on and he's got a pretty basic weapon. He does keep his like Nintendo DS like strapped to his chest here, so like if he ever wants to play like whatever on there, some sort of rhythm game I'm assuming, he does have that available, which is kind of neat. He does have like his name on his chest there, which is kind of a bummer because it kind of takes away from like the army builder aspects, like because I think he came with a steel core helmet, so if you wanted to get a bunch of these guys you probably could. However, they all have his name on there, so that kind of takes away from that aspect just a little bit. But still, he's a good just looking army dude, right? Like you imagine your head Green Army Man. This is him, you know. Feel old yet or whatever? I don't, that's stupid. And then Tunnel Red here is pretty cool. He's kind of how I was talking about like Snow Job earlier, where just he comes with so much, you know? And this was not a deluxe figure, but like he still comes with so much. Like he's got his sort of head gear here for like night vision and like a big gun and a massive backpack. I mean, this honestly does cause some issues when they're trying to stand him, but you know, just like this little guy who's like obviously shorter than the other characters, I think that's kind of unique, kind of going back to Big Ben being big, Tunnel Red is small. It's cool to have a little size sort of variety when it comes to your figures here. You don't get that very often, but it is cool when it happens. But I like the face paint. I like everything about this. I like just how much he carries. He looks like he's carrying too much in a good way. And then we have Shooter, our sort of nighttime sort of sniper. Once again, I'm not familiar with this character. She might be new, but she's cool. You know, she's a cool addition. It provides a little bit something different. We don't have a lot of female characters, so to add some new characters in there, I think is kind of neat. She's got a good build. I think for a female character, she doesn't stand out as too bizarre or weird in the proportions area. I think she does look really cool. And, you know, next to the other Night Force characters, I think she fits in pretty well. You know, as we get deeper and deeper into these characters, we're reaching more that I don't have as much of a major connection to. You know, in terms of the earlier stuff, characters like Spirit or Shipwreck, you know, I have that sort of emotional resonance because of stuff like the cartoon. And obviously, some of these characters were in the cartoon and various comic books, but, you know, just the more you go, the less you're going to be excited about every single person. But that's fine, because it's kind of cool to get these characters and learn a little something about them, you know? Like, for this character like Shooter, this is my first action figure ever, and I think the first action figure ever. So it's cool that this is sort of an introduction to this character to kind of get to know her and kind of make up your own stories in your head of what she's like and what she does. You know, it's kind of neat in terms of adding some different characters where you can kind of play along and make up your own stuff, if you will. Because that's a big part of this line, is you make up your own stories. There's no cartoon to tie this into. There's no comic books. I mean, there are comic books now, but they're not tied to this. Like, you can kind of make up your own characterizations and plots, and that's kind of fun. All right, we're getting closer and closer to the current era of figures, of course. We have got some really cool ones, honestly. I think pretty much all of these are really cool in their own right. We have Shockwave, General Hawk, Agent Helix, and Desert Commando Snake Eyes, or Snake Eyes Desert Commando. It's Snake Eyes. He's in the desert. You get what I mean. You know what? We're just going to start talking about this figure. It's It's the same body, if you hadn't noticed. This is the third time we've looked at this body in this very video. It's not even the third time the body was used. There's other versions I don't have, but this one I jumped at just because I liked all the details to it. It's very creamy, you know? It kind of has a sort of like brown sugar, sort of caramel kind of vibe to it. So I like that. A little bit of mocha in the pants there. He's got this sort of like sword with the orange on it, which kind of makes it feel like it's like got energy to it or something. But yeah, I think like the visor, this head on this body, I think really works for it. So it's kind of cool. It's unique. You know, yes, it's the same body. You know, it's not new in that regard, but you can be kind of amazed what a fresh coat of paint will do to a figure. Shockwave is another character I know nothing about. You know, you talk about Hasbro and Shockwave, and obviously I'm picturing a big purple guy with the one eye, but this Shockwave, who's clearly like a sort of riot guy, right? Like sort of a police officer, looks really cool. I like the blue. I like the hints of yellow all over his body. I like the hat on a full-on mask. Quite a choice. And of course he has a big riot shield, which clearly shows he's taken out a few COBRA somethings. You know what those are? Is it alley vipers? You know, like maybe he's going shield to shield. I don't know. But he's got his baton here to hit people. You know, we can imagine a fictional world where this guy treats people fairly. I think that's just fine. So as a toy, you know, he's really loaded out. He's gonna do something with it. But just for now, he just has the baton. That's enough. He looks cool. I think the blue really stands out on a shelf of like greens and grays and military colors. The blue pops. Hawk is really cool. Obviously, Hawk is not a character we saw a lot of play in the cartoon. I think of him in like the movie role and everything, right? But he looks good. He's got this awesome bomber jacket with these sort of camo pants here. The helmet, you know, that's how I imagine the character from commercials and everything like that. So the helmet stays on, you know, no matter what. But overall, he's a good-looking military dude, right? Like, that's what really matters. So if you're having this sort of commanding officer, this guy that you're gonna have to take orders from, this looks like the guy that is gonna give the orders. So, but I love all the details on the jacket and everything. I think that looks really, really nice. When they do things like zippers and buckles and all that stuff, that's always an awesome detail. And then finally here we have Agent Helix, which from what I understand is a fairly new character. I think she was introduced during the like Rise of Cobra movie line. And I mean, awesome, right? Like, I love the yellow, very Kill Bill. This like arm blades that sort of extend out, and I mean, yeah, you know, she could just like stab you without even looking at you kind of thing. I think it's cool. It's a little sci-fi, but hey, you know, it's G.I. Joe. They shoot lasers and weather dominators and pyramids of darkness. Like, G.I. Joe can be a bit sci-fi, so this sort of like sci-fi ninja assassin character, I think looks really cool. You know, the hair is a bit like my OC kind of deal, right? Where it's got the blonde with the streak of black in front of the face. It's a bit, you know, original character, do not steal. But it's a good character, so, you know, don't steal it. I think stuff like this just really demonstrates how G.I. Joe is starting to branch out into different eras, of course. Like, you've got some classic stuff in here, you've got some iconic characters, you've got some newer characters, and then you've got sort of an obligatory sort of repaint. You know, that's just kind of a normal toy line, I would say. When you think of your average DC or Marvel line or wrestling, whatever it is, there's going to be some new people, some legends, and then the person that's in like every other wave. You know, like that's just how it is. So to see this is like a perfect example of what G.I. Joe can be, and honestly should be. Alright, we're starting to come up on some releases that came out within the last couple months or so. These are going to be, once again, all completely different, which has been such a running theme with this G.I. Joe video, which I'm very happy about, if I'm being honest, if you couldn't tell by now. So we have Quick Kick, Wolf Spider, Mutt and Junkyard, and Airborne. So Airborne is a character that, I'm going to say it again, I don't know a whole lot about. However, he's clearly a pilot, so therefore I have a bit of a bias towards him. I mean, I like pilots, you know, I like jet planes, I like Hal Jordan, so having a guy that's clearly a pilot is going to be an easy pickup for me. I love his sort of goggles that I have on him right now. He's looking really cool, like he's wearing some awesome shades, but just the overall design is very simple. It's not very busy. It's not very cartoony. It's just a guy in a flight suit, and he's got stuff like a knife and a gun and simple stuff like that. But first and foremost, he's a pilot, so he's going to be flying, and that's about it. It's a shame because we're never going to get a plane for this guy, but still, he does look the part of pilot. I have no clue who Wolf Spider is. Is this another like newer character maybe? I have no clue. Obviously, he's part of Night Force, which if you couldn't tell by all the greens and the blacks and things like that, he's got this sort of like face mask on, which is removable, so you can see his sort of angry repaint face of Kamakura, but I think he looks cooler like that. I like the details. I think the yellow really pops out really well. I like the sort of big blue eye that he has on his mask there. It's a pretty cool figure. I don't think it's like a must-have. I think it could be very easily passed up. But like, if you're just looking for like a cool rando to have on the shelf, I think he looks cool. I think if you play Call of Duty, you probably think this guy looks awesome. So like, probably pick him up if you want that. Now, Quick Kick is a character that I do know. It helps that he was in the cartoon. This is one of those characters where it's like, all right, we got to do some sort of karate kung fu thing because of the time. We got to have a character like that. So, he's got this sort of Japanese headband and he's got all that going on, but he's really a Hollywood stuntman. Like, I think that's such a fun character trait. I love the way he talks in the cartoon. I love just how goofy he is. Like, it'd be so easy to have like a very stereotypical, like you dishonor my family kind of Japanese stereotype, but instead he's like it's just a dude. He's just a guy who's in a chocolate bar commercial, so like that's his priorities, is to like be famous, be in Hollywood, and then also like kick butt while he can. So, and I know on camera the skin tones between like the arms and the torso, very, very noticeable. It's not noticeable in person, but it's not nearly this bad, I will say. If you're in person, you have it in natural lighting, you're not going to notice it like this. But on camera, it's like wearing a tank top. Last but certainly not least, we have Mutt and Junkyard. So once again, adding to the sort of animal train of characters that we have in G.I. Joe. Both Cobra and G.I. Joe have these sort of pets and everything, so to have another dog is really cool. I mean, I love the sort of face and everything on there. He's just a nice little Rottweiler. I think that's awesome. He comes with this sort of like happy face and like sort of an angry face. Mutt here only comes with this face, which is kind of funny. I wish he came with a more normal expression, but like it fits him. He looks angry, and I mean, if you're gonna be seeing this guy, you know what I'm thinking. You just stop all the downloading. And that's just a cool set of figures. I don't think all of these are like you gotta buy them now. I don't know if really the later half, you're gonna run out of characters that you just have to have. But we're still gonna have characters from cartoons and the original toy line and all those things. So even if it's just the bare interest of this guy looks cool, or I like that he comes with an animal, I think that they're providing enough in the line for fans to get excited about, even if you're not buying all of them. And then we have some more retro figures, the cards that come on the retro card backs. And like I said, when the line like that starts, you're really going to have to expect a lot of reuse and repaints and that kind of practice, which is very normal for toys. But, when they do like a theme like that, that's sort of what you're led to expect. But here, especially for G.I. Joe, they do reuse really, really well. Like, there's definitely a lot of reuse going on here in terms of the snake eyes. There's parts reused from the Stalker we looked at earlier. Scarlet is technically like a pre-tool, I guess, or kind of a remake or whatever. There's a character that's going to be used in a HasLab at some point, and she was revealed before the Scarlet came out. So, it was kind of already known that she was coming just based on her design. So even though there's a lot of reuse, they still look like new figures. Especially something like Duke and Scarlet, who did previously have figures in the line that looked vastly different. You don't feel like you're going to have to buy like, oh, this is just the same thing I already have. No, these feel different. Looking at Recondo, he's a pretty normal safari man. He's got the big hat and the mustache, and he definitely has that big game hunter vibe. He's a little boring, I guess you could say, because he is just tan with the sort of camo stripes on the pants here, so not a whole lot of special going on, but he definitely fills the spot on the shelf. And with a mustache like that and this hair, I mean, yeah, I think he pulls his own weight just by the head sculpt alone, honestly. Scarlet is definitely a much needed sort of upgrade from the previous figure. I didn't hate the previous figure. I thought it was perfectly fine. But, that one definitely didn't feel like a classic Scarlet. But this one with a much more sort of like not as loud hairstyle and a much more natural skin complexion, it's yeah, I think she looks really good. I do wish she was kind of a bit more like almost like a lilac, or not lilac, but like a lavender indigo. She was more indigo in the show, but here it's more of like a grayish color. But I don't mind it. I think this is a really good look for her, which is nice. I think in terms of Scarlet, it's good to have this character as available as possible. She's kind of the de facto like female character of the show. You could argue like Lady J or something, but yeah, I think having Scarlet available is a smart choice, especially in this very nice, classic looking, very streamlined, very simple design. Duke here looks really good. He honestly looks like almost a one-to-one interpretation of what he would look like nowadays if you just purely based it on the original toy. Like if you took that original concept of that original little toy back in the 80s and made it sort of a modern day collectible figure, this is it. The head sculpt, I don't know if I prefer it to the original. I really like the original head sculpt on the classified, the Wave 1 figure, but this one's good. It looks like Duke. It's undeniably Duke. He's very stern. He's very commanding. He's got his cool backpack with a shovel on it. Like, it's a very straightforward, simple thing. Kind of like Rakondo. It could be a bit boring in comparison, but, it's Duke. He's not exactly, like, the coolest, most badass dude. He's like Captain America, It's Michael Bell. I look at this and I hear Michael Bell being a commanding, like, dude. And that's about it. And we'll end it on Snake Eyes. Yes, another Snake Eyes. This one going for that sort of commando look, but being a bit more close to the original design than the other one that we looked at. There was one that came with timber, and it was a bit more modern because it was using that beachhead body. Now that we've got this sort of stalker body, it's very slim. It does look like that original version. I don't know if I have a preference between the two. I honestly like both for their own specific reasons. I like this one. I think it has a very good, just like, straight up and down pose, which is appreciated on, for a figure just to have a nice vanilla stance. But he does come with a good amount. I think he's very straightforward. It makes me want a classic sort of ninja Snake Eyes. We've got this sort of commando look again and again. Where's our sort of straightforward ninja? I would really, really like that at some point. Once again, I do want to point out just how good these figures look, considering they are on this sort of retro-carded theming for the line. They're not normal figures. They are meant to be kind of an offshoot. And like I said, when toy lines do stuff like that, it is meant to kind of be a cost-saving measure. They're not looking to put brand new, iconic stuff in a line because, well, that's what the main line is for. However, these do feel like genuinely good figures. They don't feel like afterthoughts. They don't feel like budgetary things. They feel like much needed additions to the collection. So, honestly, I'm glad that the G.I. Joe team doesn't treat any of their lines as like oh, well, this is the whatever line. This is the afterthought line. No, this is important, and if you like those classic characters, this is what you're going to be looking for. And the last thing that we're going to be looking at today is, of course, Clutch with the Vamp. Now, this is definitely the biggest G.I. Joe vehicle that they've done so far. Obviously, we haven't seen that their HasLab yet. I'm sure that's going to be much, much bigger, but as I mentioned earlier, when you do 6-inch lines, you really don't expect vehicles, Like, it's just not made for that. If you were to make a 6-inch scale Millennium Falcon, it would be huge. You can't do it. So, getting the few vehicles and things that we have so far is honestly really exciting just because you don't expect something like this to exist. And it's affordable, it's good, it's well made. I mean, look at this thing. I mean, that's pretty cool to me. I don't know. I think that's awesome that we have this genuine giant car for our characters to roll around in. For comparison, I'll go ahead and bring in Grunt, so you can kind of see what it looks like when a character is sort of standing next to the vehicle, how big it is. It is a pretty big thing. I mean, if you want to get a sort of straight-on look at it, here's grunt laying down. You know, it's going to be bigger than an average figure. I mean, obviously, that goes without saying. But I do think that it is an impressive vehicle to have, which, you know, it looks really good. We'll also give a closer look at Clutch inside. You know, I've got him just sort of hanging out at the steering wheel. He's got his sort of accessories just in the passenger seat. He does look pretty cool. Kind of looks like Wheeler Yuta, if you ask me, but it's fully decked out. It's a super fun vehicle, which I can't get over the fact that we have a big vehicle like this. Like, it's just too cool, honestly. Seeing stuff like this does make me excited for the future. You know, if they're able to make this sort of four-wheel vehicle like this work, what else can they do? You know, we've seen HasLabs, and HasLabs are a bit of a different story, but in terms of, you know, an actual item that you can find at normally for a normal price, I want to see what they do next.
This video is brought to you in part by Hobby Link Japan. If you're a fan of things like Super Sentai or just Japanese media in general, why don't you check out Hobby Link Japan? They've got figures, statues, and a whole horde of different kind of collectibles. Click the link down in the description below to check out Hobby Link Japan today.
And there you guys go. That is my entire collection of G.I. Joe Classified, specifically G.I. Joe. Now don't worry, there will be a part 2. I will do my entire COBRA collection, which has a lot more army building going on, so that'll be interesting to shoot. But thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you all have a very happy Yojo June, as if that's a thing to celebrate, I guess. But once again, I thank you guys so much for watching. Obviously, G.I. Joe is something that I really, really enjoy. I love this sort of big, wacky world of characters. I know on the surface it's like, military story. Like, I'm a little tired of that. You know, this isn't the 80s anymore. And I get that. But there's so much stories that can be told there. There's sci-fi, there's action, thrilling, you know, so much that can be told with the world of G.I. Joe. In terms of toys, I think they make some really, really good ones. So, really, that's it. Thank you guys once again for watching. You can feel free to check out my socials. That'll be linked down in the description below. Subscribe for more videos. Once again, more G.I. Joe videos will be coming this very month. So please, stick around for that. And I guess that's pretty much it. Thanks, guys. Take care.